It's not just gun crime that you can get out on bail for. Blog TO is reporting, quote, Toronto feces thrower Samuel Opoku released on bail. And I'm not going to read this, but what do you have to do? Like, how many people do you have to assault with feces before you have to do jail time? Everybody's getting out on bail. Oh, you shot somebody? All right, you go out this afternoon and don't you do it again. You smeared poop? You threw feces on people? Don't you do it again. The infantilization of our entire society is becoming complete. Like, is this the parents? He spent some time in his room and now he's allowed to go back out and shake your finger at him. It's frustrating because when there are no consequences for your actions, you continue to do those bad actions. If there are consequences, like jail time, then maybe you think about it twice. I mean, and realistically, I've worked custody. I understand that no, jail time is not a huge deterrent. But what else are you going to do? This guy's going to come back out and reoffend. Can't wait to see the headlines. I can wait. I hope he doesn't. But realistically, history is a good indicator of future behavior, right? The way you acted in the past is a good indicator of what you're going to do in the future. So. Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he says, quote, what do you know? No need for a special deal for SNC to save 9,000 jobs. Prosecutors and judges punished the guilty and protected the innocent after Trudeau was forced to back off. Wilson Raybould was right. Okay, except that the fine levied against SNC Lavalin was small, 280 million. The 130 million was the bribery. And they were allowed for more than a decade to benefit off this money. $280 million? Come on. But fundamentally, they didn't necessarily punish the guilty. SNC got away scot-free, as we'll see in just a minute, and protected the innocent. Well, not really. I don't think so. I mean, maybe he's talking about the jobs here, but fundamentally, I disagree with Mr. Poilievre. I don't think this is a carriage of justice. I don't think that the judge got this right. The fine is too low. There's lots wrong with this. They basically got the DPA without the DPA. That's essentially what happened. They got it without having to actually do it. Here's Globe and Mail reporting. SNC Lavalin unit pleads guilty to fraud charges to pay $280 million fine. A unit of SNC Lavalin Group Incorporated has pled guilty to fraud, ending a legal drama that has engulfed the engineering company and the Trudeau government. The Canadian engineering giant and prosecutors on Wednesday unveiled a deal in which the company's construction division pled guilty to a single charge of fraud related to activities in Libya. It will pay a $280 million fine and receive a 3-year probation order. A more potentially damaging charge of bribery under the Corruption of Foreign Public Officials Act was dropped. The resolution was months in the making. Lawyers for the company and Crown said its immediate effects is to bring an end to the criminal charges against the company that for years have undermined its business in Canada and abroad, closing a painful chapter in the history of one of the country's corporate pillars. Earlier this week, a former SNC Lavalin official was convicted of bribery and fraud in connection with the matter. And I've reported on that. That's Sammy Babawi. Back to the article. Since the company was charged in 2015, it had maintained that the offenses were the work of a few rogue individuals rather than SNC Lavalin itself. Legal observers said the prosecutors were facing the uncertainty of getting a conviction at trial and the risk that the case would be thrown out because of delays. In agreeing to the size of the fine, Quebec Court Justice Claude Leblanc gave, quote, significant credit to the company for its guilty plea, sparing taxpayers the cost of a long trial. Oh, he's saving you money. He's saving you money by letting them off scot-free or with a parking ticket, right? Back to the article. Federal prosecutors had declined last year to offer a settlement called a Deferred Prosecution Agreement, DPA, to SNC. However, they came to SNC this fall saying they were willing to look at new alternatives to resolve the case, said two people familiar with the situation. At that time, the prosecutors introduced the concept of SNC's construction unit pleading guilty to a single charge of fraud and other charges being withdrawn, the source said. The Globe and Mail is not identifying the sources because they are not authorized to speak to the media about the case. The structure of the agreement holds the prospect that the company would still be allowed to bid for the federal contracts, the sources said. Now, previously, if they were tried and convicted of the bribery and the fraud, they would be barred from bidding on federal contracts, not provincial contracts, but federal contracts for 10 years. And that was a really, really big deal for SNC Lavalin for whatever reason. And you can look at the history of payments to the Liberals and the Conservatives. So, I mean, maybe that's part of the reason, but I have no idea. I have no idea why they were so concerned about federal contracts. It's not even their bread and butter. Like, they haven't been bidding, or I guess they have. They got a special agreement from the Trudeau government in 2015 to allow them to continue bidding on government contracts while this whole, inconvenient, illegal bribery stuff was sorted out. But fundamentally, they've been bidding on federal contracts for a while, but they have a very diverse portfolio. They're allowed to bid on contracts around the world, contracts in Ontario or Nova Scotia or BC, right? BC, they're massive contracts there. They do things all over the world. So again, I'm not sure why the fixation on bidding on federal contracts was such a big deal. You could just double down on other engineering projects. Like 10 years of work is nothing, really. Back to the article. Quote, "This agreement is reasonable and not contrary to the public interest," Justice LeBlanc said in approving the party's recommendation. "Without such plea deals, Canada's justice system, quote, would collapse under its own weight. We couldn't possibly prosecute all the criminals, not to the fullest extent of the law. Without plea deals like this, letting criminals off like this, our entire justice system would collapse." Do you believe that? Do you believe that? That's what he believes. That's what this justice believes, right? We couldn't possibly... Plea deals like this are necessary in Canada's justice system. Right? Without them, the whole system would collapse under its own weight. Man, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. That says to me that our system is outdated. Maybe it doesn't have enough judges. Maybe it's not staffed appropriately. Maybe we should stop importing people as the solution to everything and look at actually spending Canadian tax dollars in Canada on maybe the justice system so we can actually prosecute companies that blatantly break the law across borders and bribe people and flagrantly influence foreign officials, and now they're just getting away with a slap on the wrist, a fraud charge. Oh, how dare you? How dare you? Right? But don't worry, our system's great, but it would collapse under its own weight. Seriously, what a joke. Back to this. SNC Lavalin has lobbied the federal government for a DPA as an alternative to criminal prosecutions. DPAs introduced by the Liberals in 2018 allowed companies to avoid criminal prosecution by paying hefty fines and changing the way they do the business. Instead of paying a hefty fine, they got a little fine. So, SNC didn't get a DPA, just a little fine in 3 years of making sure they're ethically above board, right? Back to the article. As recently as November, the company argued that the court that the director of public prosecutions abused the process by not offering a DPA. The one they created in the omnibus budget in 2018. Yeah. They're breaking the law. How dare they? SNC broke the law for years, more than a decade. Jeepers creepers. In October 2018, the federal prosecutors announced that SNC Lavalin would not receive a DPA. Early this year, the Globe and Mail reported that the Prime Minister and other members of the government improperly pressed Judy Wilson-Raybould to order a settlement when she was Justice Minister and Attorney General. Ms. Wilson-Raybould subsequently left the federal cabinet and the Liberal caucus. She was ejected from the Liberal caucus. How dare she question their leader? She didn't leave. She was ejected. I just want to make that plain. Thanks, Globe and Mail. Back to the article. The SNC Lavalin affair dogged the Liberal government for months and during the campaign for the October 21st federal election. A key difference in the DPA process versus the plea deal worked in SNC's favor. In determining the appropriate penalty for SNC, the court and the Crown were required under a plea deal to take into account the impact the sentencing would have on the company's economic viability and capacity to keep its employees. It's an obligatory condition that the judge had to follow under the criminal code, and it was followed in this case, prosecutor Richard Roy said. And crucially for SNC's future business, the company said the settlement will allow it to bid on government contracts in Canada and projects abroad. The plea deal allows SNC to resolve charges with a punishment that many thought would be worse. Some investment analysts projected a much larger fine. Yeah, isn't that weird? Back to the article. SNC shares surged 19% in Toronto trading on the news of the deal, closing at $28.70. The stock had dropped by nearly 50% over the past 12 months through the end of the day Tuesday. SNC Lavalin Construction will pay the $280 million fine in equal installments over 5 years. It also agreed to a 3-year probation order under which it will hire an independent consulting firm that will monitor the company's compliance and ethics programs and publish reports on SNC Lavalin's websites. So this is a DPA without the DPA. Okay? Back to this. Montreal-based SNC Lavalin was plunged into turmoil in early 2012. This basically just goes over the whole thing. I'm not going to actually read it. Check it out if you want. Link is in the description. There's no need to rehash all of the SNC stuff. But Isn't it interesting, right? A little slap on the wrist. Robin Urbach, she is a former CBC columnist. I don't believe she works at CBC anymore. Oh, she's Globe and Mail now. And she says, when did the 9,000 job losses happen? And then here's the SNC surge's share after the company settles the fraud charge. I just wanted to show you the graph, right? Oh, there you go. DPA. I said a few days ago, couple days, before the end of this trial, you're going to see DPA. We got it. Last story for this morning. And I'm right on time. This says, okay, folks, this is insanity. I work for a company that dries grain. We've used a lot this year, as you can tell. Please note the carbon tax of 22%. This will only go up from here. Please spread this far and wide to shame the liberals. They deserve it, and it will only get worse. So people are concerned about the price of food when grain adds an extra $10,000 carbon tax drying bill, plus there's like $500 GST on the carbon tax. So you pay GST directly on the carbon tax, which that's poking you in the eye, right? That's kicking you when you're down. It's that's doubling down on a tax, right? A tax on a tax. Anyway, if you don't think that the price of bread is going to increase shortly, then well, I've got a bridge to sell you along with some swampy land in Florida. Did I say swampy? I meant waterfront. Right? Like, the carbon tax doesn't work. All it does is make things more expensive. Here's a real-time example, use case study is the word I was looking for, of that happening in real time. This will directly impact the price of bread going forward. Grain drying. Yes. Carbon taxes on grain drying. And the government said that farming would be exempt. It's not. But if you're an electricity producing station like Belledune or Beldun in New Brunswick, you're exempt. You'll pay a carbon tax of equivalent to about $1. Right? Welcome to liberal land. It's unbelievable. And how do you even start to put up a resistance against this? Right? Like, as I said, people don't seem to care. People don't care about SNC Lavalin. People don't care about the corruption that's connected to that, all of that. They don't care about the increased prices, it seems. And from housing to food to electricity to heat, right? It's all going up. Nobody cares. Everybody's saying, oh, well, we've got so much money. We could pay more taxes. I don't understand it. Where's all this extra money? People can't afford houses, and yet they feel okay to pay more taxes for carbon taxes with the knowledge that it doesn't reduce emissions. Look at British Columbia. It doesn't reduce emissions. It's just false. It's just theft. They're just taking your money and they're giving it to you, sort of, except the carbon tax rebates went down. You're welcome, Ontario and Alberta, right? In Saskatchewan. It's crazy. It's crazy. And what's even crazier is that nobody cares. That's the part I'm having trouble getting past. All of this stuff government doing, it's almost expected at this point in time. I don't expect much from Justin Trudeau. I don't expect much from the Conservative Party of Canada. I don't expect much. And so I'm not getting much. So I'm not all that surprised by that, but I'm surprised by the people's apathy. Nobody cares. They say, look at this. And they point at it and they say, I wonder how that's going to affect me. And then they say, I need a raise because food's too expensive. Wake up. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? Nobody cares in the day-to-day, and then they complain and bitch and moan about cost of living, right? Can you believe how much rent is? Yeah, I can believe it. I can believe it because they're flooding the country with people. Can you believe the price of food? Yes, I can believe it. They're taxing the production a lot. Not even, look at the GST on that. Like, oh. The GST is, what, 13% right now? HST in Ontario is 13%, right? So the carbon tax adds a massive percentage to that. And I say again, the thing that I find absolutely incredible is that nobody cares. So what do? Oh, Merry Christmas, everybody. So that brings me to the end of my show. Sorry for ending on a downer. I just don't get it. So that's it. That's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and check out CanadaPoly.com. Oh, I did that backwards. Check out CanadaPoly.com and have a wonderful, wonderful day.